Hi, I'm Lana.
I knew something was wrong the moment I came home and didn't hear the scratch of paws at the door. Normally, Max would beat me to the handle, tail wagging like it could power a small village, his favorite sock toy clenched in his mouth like a trophy. But that day, silence greeted me instead. The living room was spotless, too spotless. His toys were gone from the basket by the couch. His water bowl, the one with cartoon bones printed on it, was missing from the kitchen corner. I dropped my bag and called his name anyway, thinking maybe he was asleep or sick. No answer. That's when I noticed it. The absence of fur on the rug. The missing leash from the hook by the door. The house didn't just feel quiet. It felt empty. Hollow. And I knew something had happened. My name is Lana, and if you told me 6 months ago that I'd end up launching a pet brand with national distribution and a viral campaign, I would have laughed in your face. My life revolved around my dog Max, a border collie with more personality than half the people I knew. Max had been a birthday gift when I turned 17. I was 25 now. He'd been with me through everything: the move to the city, the heartbreaks, the failed jobs, the one big break that turned into my current career in branding and product design. I had started my company, Muzzle, with Max as the face. He was on every test label I printed, every product I pitched. I didn't just love him. He was the reason I believed in myself at all. So when I stood in the middle of my apartment and realized he was gone, my chest cracked open. I called my parents first, mostly out of habit. My mom answered, voice sweet like she hadn't just rearranged the shape of my life. I asked where Max was. She paused too long. Then she said the words that made the floor drop under my feet. We found him a better home, sweetie. You're so busy these days. We thought it would be best. I couldn't breathe. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just asked her to repeat it. And she did, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Like Max was a piece of furniture they'd given away. She said he'd gone to a nice family who had more time for him. I asked who.
She didn't know.
Said they used an agency that picked him up while I was away on a business trip. They never called. Never asked. They just handed him off like I wouldn't notice. Like it didn't matter. The worst part? I couldn't even get him back. She didn't have the contact info. Didn't remember the name of the agency. It was one of those pet rehoming services, she said. They had great reviews online. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My hands shook as I tore through every drawer in my apartment looking for the paperwork from Max's adoption. The only thing I found was his first collar, tiny, blue, and frayed. I sat on the floor with it in my lap for what felt like hours.
My dog.
My best friend.
Gone.
I spiraled for days. I barely made it to work, and when I did, I snapped at my assistant for things that weren't her fault. Every ad I reviewed, every label mock-up I saw, Max's face stared back at me with his goofy, tongue-lolling grin. I couldn't escape him. Even worse, the company was about to launch our biggest campaign yet, Muzzle Moments, a commercial featuring a montage of real dogs using our gear in real homes. I'd personally approved the final footage before Max disappeared. It was the last time I saw him.
Until I saw him again.
The commercial aired during a national streaming event. I wasn't watching, couldn't stomach seeing him on screen, but my phone exploded with messages. Friends, followers, even a couple of exes. All of them saying the same thing. Hey, isn't that Max? You brought Max back for the ad? He looks so good. Where was that filmed? Confused, I clicked the video. At first, it was the usual B-roll of dogs frolicking in parks, chewing our signature toys, snuggled up in beds made with our signature calming fabric. And then, 2/3 in, there he was.
Mush.
Not old footage, not recycled content, fresh. He wore a new collar, one I'd never seen. His fur had been trimmed a little differently, but it was him.
Clear as day.
Wagging, barking, playing fetch with a kid in a modern-looking backyard. I froze the frame, zoomed in. The boy was maybe 10. The house behind him had stone steps, a lemon tree near the fence. California? My stomach dropped. This wasn't just a random dog that looked like Max. It was him. In someone else's yard. With someone else's family. And somehow, he'd ended up in my brand's commercial. The one I helped create. The one I'd poured my grief into, thinking the footage was the last thing I'd ever see of him. I felt sick.
Betrayed.
And more than anything, I felt like the world was playing some twisted joke on me. I called the production company in a panic. Asked who submitted that particular footage. The line went quiet for a second too long. Then the producer spoke, careful and measured. We received that clip through a casting agency. The family signed full release forms. Dog's name is Max, according to the paperwork. He tested great with the camera. Real natural. I asked for the agency's name. They gave it to me. It was the same name my mom had mumbled over the phone, barely remembered. I called immediately, desperate. They didn't want to give me details. Said it violated client privacy. I told them I was the original owner. They asked for proof. I sent photos, hundreds of them. Max in every season. Max on every birthday. Max with me, in matching costumes, licking my face. The lady on the phone softened. She said she'd check what she could and call me back. Hours passed. When my phone finally rang, I felt like I was going to throw up. She told me the family had listed Max's adoption as closed. No contact.
No updates.
No return.
But she slipped.
She said something about the footage being filmed at a residence in San Mateo. I had a city. That was all I needed. I booked a flight that night. It felt insane, like something out of a bad movie. A girl flying across the state to chase a dog who didn't even know he was missing. But Max wasn't just a dog. He was my anchor. And I wasn't going to let him slip away without a fight. The next day, I landed in San Francisco and rented a car. I drove through San Mateo like a ghost, scanning houses for lemon trees and stone steps. I had the commercial pulled up on my phone, pausing and playing it every few blocks. On the third hour, I saw it.
The tree.
The fence. The exact shape of the garden path. I pulled over, heart hammering, and stared at the door. What was I even doing? Barging into some stranger's life. What if Max didn't recognize me?
What if he was happier now?
But the moment the front door opened, and he bolted out with his tail wagging like a flag, I knew none of that mattered. He knew me. He always would. But that was just the beginning. Because as I crouched down, tears blurring my vision, Max between my arms, a woman's voice called from the porch. "Excuse me? Can I help you?" I looked up. She was younger than I expected. Early 30s, maybe.
Polished.
Professional. And holding a leash. She looked from me to Max, her expression hardening. "What are you doing with my dog?" she asked. The twist came fast and sharp. Because she wasn't just Max's new owner. She was someone I knew, someone I'd worked with briefly on a past campaign for a rival brand. And her face had been on the cover of last month's Founders to Watch. And now somehow she owned Max. My Max. And she had no intention of giving him back. She wasn't going to make this easy. And I wasn't going to walk away quietly. For a second, I thought she might be joking. That maybe there had been a mix-up. That maybe she would laugh and hand me the leash and say, "Of course, take him back, he's yours." But she didn't laugh. She stood tall, square her shoulders, and looked at me like I was a trespasser. Like I was holding something that didn't belong to me. Max stayed beside me, tail thumping against my leg, tongue out in happy pants, oblivious to the weight of the moment. His leash dangled from her hand, and in that second, it felt like a chain. "You need to let go of my dog," she said again, firmer this time. Her eyes flicked down to the branded key fob in my hand. Lana, right? From Muzzle? And that was when it clicked. She knew exactly who I was. This wasn't a coincidence. This was planned. I stood slowly, still holding Max's collar. "You knew who he was when you filmed him, didn't you?" She didn't answer right away, which was enough. I read it in her silence, in the way her lips tightened. "You used my dog for your brand's biggest ad campaign." She nodded slowly. "Technically, he's not your dog anymore." The words burned. "You bought him through a rehoming service," I said, voice shaking. "One my parents contacted without my knowledge." "That may be," she replied, cool as marble. But I followed the process. Paperwork was signed. He's legally mine now. Max barked softly, tail still wagging, nudging my hand with his nose.
Ich zerrte her, stunt.
This wasn't just a woman who'd accidentally adopted my dog. She was a business rival. She ran Pawsworth, the boutique pet brand that had tried to poach one of my suppliers just 2 months ago. I'd seen her at a conference once. She gave a speech on branding with heart. I wanted to laugh at the irony. Now here she was, with Max, parading him in commercials, probably plotting the next media wave to steal the thunder from Muzzle's upcoming launch. I didn't know he was your dog at first, she said, stepping closer, leash still in hand. But I figured it out when I saw the old footage of him on your site. Same markings. Same face. I recognized him immediately.
She paused.
But by then, he'd already bonded with my son. He sleeps in his bed. Follows him everywhere. You can't just rip that away. I wanted to scream. But instead, I took a breath and crouched beside Max again, stroking his fur. He was my dog for 8 years, I said quietly. He's been with me through every move, every failure, every launch. I built my brand around him. I trusted my parents to watch him while I worked, and they sold him without telling me. Her face softened for a flicker of a moment, but it hardened again almost immediately.
Then take it up with them, she said.
Don't come here trying to claim something you legally gave up. I've paid his vet bills, his food, his training. He's chipped to me now. End of story. I looked at Max. He looked at me, tongue out, unaware. And I realized what she had done. She had taken more than just a dog. She'd taken a piece of my identity and turned it into a pawn in some twisted corporate game. But I wasn't going to beg. Not here. End of story? I repeated, standing. We'll see. She narrowed her eyes. What does that mean? I didn't answer. I turned and walked back to my car, Max watching me from the yard like he didn't understand why I wasn't calling him to follow. And as I drove away, hands white-knuckling the wheel, I wasn't thinking about revenge. I was thinking about justice. About every legal form, every photo, every vet receipt I had back in my apartment. If she wanted to play games, fine. But I played them better. By the time I landed back home, I had already filed a request with the rehoming agency for transfer documentation. I looped in Emerson, my old law school friend turned corporate attorney, and gave her everything.
Max adoption certificate.
His vet ID. Photos of us together, from every year. Even the footage from my brand's beta commercial, with metadata that proved it was older than the one he'd just appeared in. This is shady, Emerson said, flipping through the files. But it's also messy. On paper, she's not wrong. She adopted Max legally. You'd have to prove fraud or bad faith, and even then, courts don't like overturning rehoming decisions, especially when a child's involved. I clenched my jaw. She used him for her brand. She stole my brand identity and inserted it into hers. Now that, Emerson said slowly, is interesting. Within 2 days, she had sent cease and desist letters to Pawsworth, citing unauthorized use of my brand dog's likeness, misleading marketing, and brand confusion. We pulled every public record, every ad featuring Max. She wasn't just using him in commercials. She'd started pushing an entire line of products modeled after my designs. She'd even copied our chew toy shape and renamed it the Pawsbone. The arrogance was almost impressive. The letter landed like a thunderclap. Within hours, her legal team reached out, wanting to talk. We agreed to a video call. She appeared on screen in a white office with glass walls and a shelf full of dog treats behind her. She looked less polished this time, more defensive. You're blowing this out of proportion, she said. It's a dog. It's not just a dog, I replied. It's my dog, my brand, my identity. And you knew that before you ever submitted that footage. She didn't deny it, just crossed her arms. You can't own a dog's face, Lana. But I can prove you used deceptive branding to imply a partnership between your company and mine, I said. And that's illegal. Emerson stepped in, calm but sharp. We're prepared to escalate to a full civil suit. Copyright infringement, brand dilution, possibly defamation, if your next ad campaign misleads consumers further. There was a long pause. Then she sighed. What do you want? I want Max back, I said immediately. And I want every ad with his face pulled from circulation. You have 24 hours. She laughed, short and bitter. My son will be heartbroken. I leaned forward. He shouldn't have been playing with someone else's dog in the first place. The call ended on silence. For a day, nothing happened. Then a press release dropped. Pawsworth was pausing all marketing featuring their canine ambassador, M. Not Max. Just M. I wasn't impressed. It was a stall. But Emerson already had the next move lined up. While digging into their media licenses, she found something else. A contract for a sponsored partnership with an influencer. The same influencer who had originally filmed Max for our campaign. The same one who'd accidentally tagged Pawsworth's brand in one of her behind-the-scenes posts. The dots connected like lightning. That woman hadn't just adopted Max. She had orchestrated the entire thing. Found him through the agency, recognized him, and used her connections to exploit his image before I even knew he was gone. It wasn't a mistake. It was calculated. And it wasn't just about the dog. It was about destroying Muzzle from the inside. But she hadn't counted on me finding out. And she hadn't counted on me fighting back. I launched a counter-campaign that week. Max's original footage. His puppy photos. Our old home videos. I told the story, the real one. I didn't mention her by name. I didn't need to. The internet figured it out fast. Hashtags started trending. Hashtag bring Max home. Hashtag muzzle not muzzle copy. Support poured in from customers, influencers, even dog lovers who'd never heard of the brand before. My inbox overflowed. Orders spiked. And Max became more than a mascot. He became a symbol. But I didn't want to win the internet. I wanted him back. And that's when something unexpected happened. A call came through to Emerson's office. From her, the rival founder. She was offering to return Max. But there was a catch. A condition. And that condition would turn everything I thought I knew upside down. Emerson didn't even blink when she told me about the call. She just slid the phone across the desk and let me read the text message that followed. Willing to return the dog. One condition, meet alone. No press. No lawyers. I stared at it for a long time, trying to figure out if this was a trap, a trick, or just another power move. She wants control, Emerson said flatly. She's losing public favor, losing the narrative, and she wants to feel like she still holds the leash, literally. Don't go alone.
But I went anyway.
I didn't tell Emerson where I was going. I left my phone in the car. I showed up to the address she texted, a neutral location, a quiet, upscale dog park just outside the city, the kind of place with manicured grass, artfully placed benches, and way stations that looked like modern art. She was already there when I arrived, wearing sunglasses, holding Max's leash. He looked well-groomed, healthy, even happy, but his ears perked up the moment he saw me. His tail thumped. He tugged forward. He still remembers, I said. She removed her sunglasses and studied me. Of course he does. But that doesn't mean he's better off with you. Is this the part where you lecture me about neglect? I asked. No, she replied. This is the part where I offer you something you didn't expect. She sat on a nearby bench and patted the space next to her. I didn't sit. I waited. I'm not giving him back because I lost, she said calmly. I'm giving him back because I found something bigger. And I think you should know the truth. I raised an eyebrow. What truth? She inhaled deeply. Your mother didn't just give Max to a random agency. She sold him directly to me. Quietly. Off record. I paid for him. The words felt like glass shattering in my chest. That's not possible. My parents told me they used a pet rehoming agency. They lied. She cut in. They used that as a cover. I approached your mother at a charity function. I told her I was looking for a mature, camera-friendly dog to represent a campaign. She said she might know someone with the perfect dog, her daughter's, who was always too busy for him. She made it sound like she was doing you a favor. I blinked, unable to speak. She showed me pictures. Talked about how Max was being wasted, sitting around all day with a workaholic who barely came home. I didn't know who you were at first. I just wanted a dog. But then I saw the muzzle branding on your socials, and I realized who Max really was.
And who you were.
And I made a decision. I stepped back. You bought my dog from my own mother. You knew who I was, and you still. Yes, she said bluntly. I saw an opportunity. I won't pretend otherwise. My company was struggling. Investors were pulling out. We needed something powerful, something genuine. And Max tested through the roof in our early audience polls. I wanted to scream, but the sound stuck in my throat. Max sat beside her calmly, his head on her knee, tail twitching. I'm not proud of what I did, she continued. But I didn't steal him. I paid. Your mother handed him over, leash and all, with a thank you note. I need proof, I said hoarsely. She pulled out her phone, opened her email, and handed it to me. The message was there. From my mother. Subject line. Transfer confirmation. It included a note. We're so grateful he'll be going to a home where he'll be appreciated and not just used for branding. Lana won't even notice he's gone. She's always too distracted. Please don't contact her. She'll come around eventually. I couldn't breathe. She stood, tugging gently on Max's leash. I'm giving him back not because I have to, not because of the legal threats, but because I can't work with a dog who doesn't fully belong to me. Your campaign made that clear. He's tied to your story, not mine. And honestly, he misses you. Max's eyes met mine, and the leash slackened as he trotted over to me without hesitation. My knees gave out, and I sank to the grass, arms around him, tears falling silently into his fur. He pressed against me like he'd never left. But this doesn't end with me giving him back, she added. There's more you should know. I looked up slowly. Your mother sold more than just your dog. She reached into her bag and handed me a flash drive. I don't know everything on here, she said. But it's tied to an account I found when I was doing background on Muzzle. There are documents, emails, maybe contracts. All I know is the name listed on a few of your early investor deals wasn't yours. It was your parents'.
Ist sehr daher.
They've been quietly funneling part of your brand's earnings into a separate trust. Yours in name only. I stumbled onto it when I tried to run a check on your licensing.
You need to see what's on that drive.
I took it, unsure if I should believe her, but too shaken to ignore it. And Lana, she added, if you're smart, you won't just get your dog back. You'll burn it all down. Then she left. That night, back home with Max asleep at my feet, I opened the files. It was worse than I thought. Emails between my parents and a silent partner. Language that suggested early-stage ownership before I even formed the LLC for Muzzle. I'd thought the seed money came from a loan. It hadn't. It had come from a deal my parents made with an investor using my name, but reserving controlling rights for themselves. A clause buried in a document I hadn't read carefully. And there it was. If I ever failed to meet performance thresholds, decision-making power could be transferred. They owned part of my brand. Still. Quietly. And the trust account? It had been siphoning off a percentage of revenue every quarter. I called Emerson at midnight. She read every line with a lawyer's eyes, then looked at me, horrified. They set you up, Lana. From day one. Your brand wasn't entirely yours. I felt hollow, betrayed twice over. Max stirred beside me, as if he knew something was wrong. We'll challenge the agreements, Emerson said. We'll prove bad faith. You're not going down with this. Not after all you built. But I wasn't thinking about going down. I was thinking about getting up. About taking it all back. And this time, making sure no one could ever take it from me again. And I was going to start with the person who betrayed me first. My mother. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. I didn't call first. I didn't text. I needed to look my mother in the eye and ask her why. Why she sold Max. Why she lied. Why she signed contracts with my name while planning to rip control from underneath me. My hand shook as I rang the bell. She answered wearing a silk robe, her hair in curlers, coffee mug in hand like nothing was wrong. She smiled faintly, as if the past few weeks hadn't happened. "Lana," she said, stepping back like this was a pleasant surprise. "You're up early." I walked inside without waiting for permission. My father sat at the kitchen table in his usual seat, the newspaper folded just so, pretending not to notice the tension slicing through the room. He glanced at me once, then went back to reading. My mother's smile faded. "You already know," she said quietly. "About Max?" I asked, voice hollow. "Or about the trust account you siphoned from my business?" Her face flinched, the mask slipping. "I want to hear it from you," I continued. "I want you to tell me how you justified it. How you convinced yourself that everything I built was just an extension of you." Her tone turned defensive, sharp. "We gave you the money to start that company. We co-signed your first lease. We introduced you to the right people. We guided you. You signed contracts behind my back," I said. "You attached my name to deals I never agreed to. And you sold my dog." My father spoke up then, soft but firm. "We thought you were overwhelmed, Lana. You were working too much, forgetting to eat. You didn't even notice when he started limping." "He wasn't limping," I snapped. "He was tired. One day, you panicked and gave him away." My mother crossed her arms. "He was better off. That woman was stable. She had a family, a yard. You had meetings and stress and late nights. He needed structure." "No," I said. "You needed control. And you couldn't stand the fact that I didn't need you anymore." The air in the room went still. She didn't deny it. "Do you even know what you did to me?" I asked. "Do you have any idea what it felt like to come home and realize the one constant in my life was gone? That my best friend had been sold like he was clutter?" "He's just a dog," she said. Those 4 words were enough. I stepped back like she'd hit me. Max wasn't just a dog. He was every night I cried on the floor. He was every morning I woke up unsure, but kept going. He was the reason I built Muzzle, the reason I survived. And she had the nerve to say he was just a dog. "I'm taking you to court," I said, "for fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and contract manipulation. And if you fight it, I'll go public." My father stood suddenly. "Lana, don't." "You knew," I said. "You signed things too. You stood by and let it happen." My mother's face twisted. "You're going to destroy your own family over money?" "No," I said coldly. "Over betrayal." I turned and walked out, and this time, they didn't try to stop me. By the end of the day, Emerson had filed the initial complaint. We included everything: the silent investor agreement, the siphoned funds, the manipulated ownership clause. I uploaded all the documents into a secure drive and started the process of reclaiming the company legally. It wouldn't be easy. There would be hearings, depositions, delays. But I didn't care. I was in it for the long game. And then something happened that I didn't expect. The press got wind of the story. Not because I leaked it, but because someone else did. Someone anonymous sent the documents to a small business blog that had once featured my early launch. They ran a piece titled, "How a Family Tried to Steal a $1 million Pet Brand from Their Own Daughter." It exploded. Other outlets picked it up. The hashtags returned. Support flooded in. But so did questions. Reporters called, emailed, camped outside the office. Emerson told me to stay quiet. Let the court handle it. But then I got an email that changed everything. It was from my old supplier, the one Pawsworth tried to poach. He wrote that he'd heard everything, seen the story, and wanted to help. He still had old emails from my parents, ones that mentioned structuring future transitions and ownership shifts. They hadn't just planned this behind my back. They'd started laying the groundwork before my first prototype even launched. That was the final nail. Emerson filed for an emergency injunction, and the judge granted it. My parents were barred from accessing any Muzzle assets, accounts, or data. The silent partner, whose real name turned out to be someone my mother's country club friend's husband, was subpoenaed. Under pressure, he rolled over, gave everything up, confirmed that the entire scheme had been engineered by my mother, who'd framed it as guidance. Now, with legal momentum and public support, I turned my focus to Max. He was home, But something had changed in him. He slept near me but stirred more often. He stayed close but seemed wary of sudden movements, like he wasn't sure if this would last. It broke my heart. So I did something for him. I pulled the Muzzle Moments campaign entirely. Every ad with his face came down. We paused all new marketing. I released a personal video. Just me, no polish, no lighting. I told the story. Not the scandal, not the legal war, but the emotional truth. About how I'd built a brand with my dog beside me, and how I'd lost him and found him again. About betrayal and resilience. About starting over. It went viral within hours. People didn't just see a businesswoman. They saw someone fighting for something real. Orders tripled. The online store crashed. My inbox was a blur of messages from other people, entrepreneurs, pet owners, daughters of overbearing parents, thanking me. Some sent pictures of their own dogs. Some just wrote, "You helped me feel seen." Emerson called late that night. "You've already won in the court of public opinion," she said. "Now we finish it in the courtroom." But I didn't feel like I'd won yet. Because one person still hadn't reached out. Vienna. My sister. She'd been quiet through all of this, absent, watching from the shadows as our parents imploded. I didn't know if she'd been involved or just indifferent. But I had to know. So I called her. To my surprise, she answered. "I figured you'd call eventually," she said, her voice tired. "You knew, didn't you?" I asked.
About Max.
About the company. "I didn't know the details," she said. "But I knew Mom was meddling. I didn't say anything because I thought maybe she was right. Maybe you were too busy." I waited. "I was jealous," she added. "You had something that was yours. Something you didn't need her for. And I didn't understand what that felt like." "I'm not asking for an apology," I said. "I know," she replied. "But I'm giving you one anyway. I should have protected you." I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I said, "We're not them. Let's not become them." She laughed softly, like she hadn't expected kindness. "I'll testify if you need me," she said. "Just say the word." I didn't know if I would, but I thanked her anyway. And when I hung up, something strange happened. I felt free, not just from the lawsuit, not just from the betrayal, but from the years of silence, of being the quiet daughter, the one who didn't complain, the one who took what she was given and made it work. Not anymore. I had my voice now. And I was going to use it. The final battle was coming. And I was ready. The courthouse hallway buzzed with soft conversations and the scratch of heels against polished tile. I sat alone on the wooden bench outside courtroom C, Max's photo clipped to the front of the file I held. Not a brand image. Just him in a silly sweater, tongue out, one ear folded wrong like it always did when he got excited. I'd printed it for courage. Not because I needed to prove who he was to me anymore, but because I needed to remember why I was doing this at all. Emerson arrived minutes before the hearing started. Calm, tailored, eyes sharp as ever. She took the seat beside me and handed me a cup of coffee without a word. I accepted it, even though my stomach twisted too much to drink. When they called our case, she touched my arm once and nodded. We rose together and entered the courtroom. Inside, my parents sat at the defense table, looking smaller than I remembered. My mother wore her pearls, the ones she saved for fundraisers and social brunches. My father looked like he hadn't slept. Their lawyer, a stiff man with gold cufflinks, stood beside them like a statue. They didn't meet my eyes. The judge, a woman with a gray bun and a reputation for not tolerating theatrics, called the session to order. Emerson opened our argument with precision. She laid out the timeline, the financial documents, the forged contracts, the unauthorized licensing of Max, the reallocation of brand profits into a separate trust. She passed out copies of emails, presented the testimony of the silent partner, showed video clips. It was a devastatingly clean presentation. My parents' lawyer argued emotional reasons, family bonds, early contributions. They were simply trying to help their daughter maintain stability, he said. They never intended harm. But the judge didn't look moved. Help doesn't usually come in the form of legal misdirection, Forged ownership and backdoor licensing agreements, she said. And it certainly doesn't come with the sale of someone's pet. The room went still. My mother's mouth twitched. Then Emerson played the voicemail. It was one my mother had left months ago, before things exploded. She didn't know it had been recorded. In it, she laughed to someone, maybe a friend, about how Lana would thank them eventually for handling her business the right way, and how Max had always been more of a prop than a pet anyway. The courtroom stayed quiet except for the soft hiss of the recording ending. That was the turning point. The judge spoke slowly. There is a clear pattern of deceit and manipulation here. The plaintiff's business was compromised. Her intellectual property exploited. Her personal pet used without permission in advertising materials. Financial records reveal substantial theft masked as guidance. The trust fund in question will be returned in full, with damages to be determined. As for the defendants, my mother stood up. We're her parents, she shouted. Everything we did was to help her succeed. She doesn't appreciate anything. She's cold and ungrateful and— Mrs. Harmon, the judge said sharply. Sit down, or I will have you removed. She's destroying this family, my mother shrieked, pointing at me. Over a dog. And that's when Max walked in. Not literally, of course. But the bailiff held up a copy of a statement from the vet clinic, verifying Max's adoption history, vet visits, microchip registration, and behavioral logs, all tied to my name for 8 straight years. The judge looked at it, then looked at me. Miss Harmon, she said, your family has treated you not as a daughter, but as a means to an end. I'm awarding full financial restitution, exclusive rights to all muzzle intellectual property, and sole decision-making authority going forward. The trust fund is now under your control, and any further interference will be subject to criminal review. I didn't cry. I didn't cheer. I just exhaled for what felt like the first time in weeks. My mother slumped back into her chair. My father didn't move at all. Outside, the press waited, but I said nothing to them. I just walked past, Max's photo still in my hands, and got into Emerson's car. Later that night, I sat with Max in our living room. He rested his head on my lap, snoring softly, one paw twitching in his sleep. The walls were painted a soft ivory now. The logo on the wall, muzzle, was backlit in gentle gold. I'd changed the packaging, updated the brand voice. Everything about the company felt lighter now, clearer, honest. Emerson sat across from me, sipping wine. It's done, she said. The checks are being cut. The contract's shredded. You're in the clear. I nodded. And them? Your parents have 30 days to comply, or the state takes further action, she said. They won't come near you again. I looked down at Max. I should be happy. You are, she said. But you're also grieving what you thought family was. That was the truth. It wasn't just about Max. It wasn't just about money. It was about trust, how fragile it really is, how easily it can be sold, signed away, traded for influence or control. I hadn't just lost a dog or a company. I'd lost the illusion that love always means safety. But maybe that was okay, because I'd also gained something bigger. My voice. A week later, I gave an interview. Not for sympathy. Not for revenge. I told the story exactly as it happened. About the betrayal, the courtroom, the silence after the verdict. About starting over. About the day Max came home. The interviewer asked if I'd forgiven my parents. No, I said. But I've released them. She tilted her head. What do you mean? They no longer get to decide who I am, I said. That's what forgiveness is for me. Reclaiming ownership of myself. The article went viral, not because it was juicy, but because it was real. Soon after, we launched a new muzzle campaign, nothing flashy. Just dogs and their people. Real homes. Real love. Max starred in the first one, sprawled on my office rug, one ear flopped over, a toy between his paws. The tagline read, "Home is who you trust." It wasn't a marketing stunt. It was a declaration. 1 month later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a small wooden box I hadn't seen in years, my childhood memory box. Tucked inside was a photo of me and Max from his first day with us. A note, written in my father's handwriting. I should have protected you. I failed. But I never stopped being proud. If you ever want to talk, I'll be waiting. No pressure. Just love.
I stared at it for a long time.
Then I put it away. Maybe one day. But not yet. Because right now I had a life to live. A business to grow. And a dog to walk. Outside, the city hummed, quiet in the early morning light. Max trotted beside me on our usual route, tail wagging, head high. Every few steps, he glanced up at me like he was checking to see if I was really still there. And I was. Finally.
Fully.
Home.